Our top story this hour is that battle to fill this vacant seat on the U.S. Supreme Court after the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on Friday. President Trump says he will choose a candidate. We could have that name as soon as Friday. Now, if Trump does get a third nominee confirmed by the U.S. Senate, it will fundamentally alter the balance of power on the high court. Here's a look at some of the names that have been mentioned as potential nominees. Amy Coney Barrett is probably the name most talked about on this list right now. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says Trump's third SCOTUS nominee will in fact get a vote on the Senate floor. This despite blocking President Obama's nominee back in 2016. Obama nominated Merrick Garland after the death of conservative Justice Antonin Scalia. Back then, McConnell and Republicans argued that voters should be the ones to determine the future of the high court during that election year. Of course, the key difference now between then and now is that the Senate is controlled by the same party as the White House. That was not the case 4 years ago. Joe Biden says he will not release a list of potential Supreme Court nominees, and here's why.
Anyone put in a list like that under these circumstances will be subject to unrelenting political attacks, because any nominee I would select would not get a hearing until 2021 at the earliest. She would endure those attacks for months on end without being able to defend herself.
Yeah, that person could never sit down and do interviews with the friendly press. Let's welcome in Newsmax White House correspondent Emerald Robinson to talk more about what's going on at the White House and the thought process there. Great to see you on this Monday, Emerald. So what are you hearing about some of the potential nominees on the list? Okay, I understand we're having some trouble with Emerald's connection. We'll try to get back to her, and we'll talk more about what the White House is thinking and what some of those the inside talk is there if we can get back to Emerald. But let's turn our attention now to the impact that this fight for the Supreme Court could have on the U.S. Senate. There are 53 Republicans in the Senate, of course, and McConnell can afford to lose just 3 votes if he wants to push this nomination ahead. Vice President Mike Pence could break a 50-50 tiebreaker, but so far 2 GOP senators have come out in opposition of this nomination. Maine Senator Susan Collins and Senator Lisa Murkowski are just 2 of the GOP members who could stand in the way. There's also some names to consider here. Utah Senator Mitt Romney, who's not up for re-election, but he could be a thorn in the side. He's not an automatic no, according to his staff, but he may not go along with this. Also, people like Colorado Senator Cory Gardner in a tough re-election battle this year, and Iowa Senator Joni Ernst also trailing to her opponent right now in Iowa. Arizona is another state to consider as well here. Let's welcome in former advisor to President Trump, Sam Nunberg, to talk more about this. Sam, great to see you.
Thank you, John, for having me on.
All right. Well, obviously, the most important thing about this is the makeup of the Supreme Court and what's going to change as a result of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, her passing and this nominee being, eventually, whether it's now or after the election, placed on the bench here. But let's talk about more the short-term impact here on how this is going to impact these Senate races. This could have this was bubbling in the background, but now it's boiling over. It's on the front burner, and everybody's paying attention to it. Does this become the most important issue of this election now?
Well, it's certainly going to be one of the top threshold issues, along with obviously our incumbent president, who is going to who's on the top of every ballot. We can talk about Susan Collins. We can talk about Maine, whether or not she thinks this vote or not voting for a confirmation is going to help her or not. But it looks like her seat is far gone. And the mistake she has critically made is, I know for a fact that she earned a lot of goodwill, especially from major donors, after her Kavanaugh vote. That is all gone. And what you have to understand, too, is when Mitch McConnell sends out an open letter, which he made public, telling everybody to hold their powder, to make sure you don't say anything as of yet about whether or not you will bring this vote to a floor before or after the election. And Susan Collins does that. She's not going to get a penny from the NRSC. She is on her own. Best of luck to her. And that is a decision that Mr. Cory Gardner is going to have to make, too. He's in a very tough fight. If it was up to Mitch McConnell, people who want to allocate money properly, perhaps they would want to put that more money into Arizona. Perhaps they would want to put more money into Iowa. If Cory Gardner does the right thing here, which is to vote, and the president, by the way, has to make the right nomination, I hope we talk about that as well, then he will have an influx of cash come to him, which he is in dire need of running in Colorado. Now, this vote also has to happen before the election. Why? I'll be honest with you. I turned my eyes. When I first heard Ted Cruz, Mark Levin saying we need to have the bench filled before this election because of what could happen in terms of this election going to the Supreme Court because of election fraud, I said, well, I don't know. I hope that one worked. But John, I can promise you this, and your audience better pay special attention. There are things that are about to come out in certain states, in certain districts, that will blow our minds when we see it. I would point to Minnesota, I would point to Michigan, and I would point to Pennsylvania.
In reference specifically, Sam, to mail-in voting.
Not only mail-in voting, so-called voter harvest.
Voter ballot harvesting, what you're talking about. Yes, I noticed
Yes.
Tulsi Gabbard had kind of an ominous warning of all places for what she's predicting she's going to see. But Sam, can you get into any more details on what we're about to learn?
I would just say that there are non-Americans who are in this country, perhaps even illegally, giving out ballots, harvesting votes for congressmen that also affect this election in swing states that this president needs on the path to 270. I would also say that we're going to have a constitutional crisis in a lot of these states because of decisions that were made by certain judges who had made special remarks. And I would specifically point to as well, North Carolina, the Secretary of State there, a Democrat up for re-election, has made a comment. I will send it to you, John, after this. You cannot believe what she said. She said, all you need to do is scribble and we'll count the vote. That is a state that's a swing state. That is a state that this president needs on the path to 270. More will come out. I know about it, but I can't talk about it until it's.
Well, Sam, my next question, obviously, is the source of this information, what we can expect. It's obviously a pretty heavy charge to be making here. The battleground state of North Carolina and massive voter fraud is what you're alleging here in that state. We'll have to follow up on this information, but that's all you can give us right now?
That's all. You'll see it. It's going to come out soon. You'll see it, and I'll make sure that they'll come on your show to talk.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. This has been a major issue, obviously, for the election. The integrity of the vote here, and making sure. But Sam is telling us we're going to hear some major news on that front. And so, what you're saying here, Sam, is why guys like Ted Cruz have been pushing so strongly for this to have the seat filled is because they expect a lot of chicanery to come about as this election, some stuff that's already happened, and they're concerned with making sure we have 9 justices on the bench, including 5 conservatives, 4 liberals.
Let's also remember, let's also remember where we are. There is no hypocrisy here at all. In 2014, the Senate switched hands. It went from Democrat-controlled, Harry Reid was kicked out, to Republican-controlled.
Right.
Justice Scalia died, and the president and Mitch McConnell said, we are not going to give you a confirmation on Merrick Garland. Here, Republicans also gained 2 seats in the Senate despite losing over 40 seats in the House. There is nothing inconsistent with this. The only inconsistency I see is with the Democrats.
Right.
The Democrats have consistently said that these seats should be filled whenever there is a Democrat in office.
And Sam, you mentioned Harry Reid. We brought this up in the last hour that if Democrats really want to place blame on somebody, they can go back to Harry Reid in 2013 for the nuclear option, eliminating the filibuster for these federal judicial appointments. All right.
John, if Democrats want to place blame, they should place blame on their geriatric Democrat candidates with diminishing skills. He may not remember this, but he was the one who borked Bork. He was the one who started this idea that Republican presidents couldn't have their own nominees go to the court. Despite Republicans, those days are long gone. I want to remind everybody something else. The reason Mitch McConnell had to go to the nuclear option on the Supreme Court is because the Democrats, he couldn't even get 5 votes from Democrats for Gorsuch to replace Kennedy. Okay, he couldn't get 5 votes there. And the only reason that you're going to see the Democrats saying this is because they assume they're going to win. But I got to tell you, if the president makes the right nomination, in my opinion, in the opinion of people that are much more important than me, that's Amy Coney Barrett. If he does that, that is also a game changer in Pennsylvania. Joey from Scranton likes to say, although he moved from there when he was 8 years old, he likes to say he's Mr. Catholic. And all the Catholics that voted for Barack Obama and him, then voted for Trump, should go back to him. Amy Coney Barrett will be the reminder that Joe Biden wants 3rd trimester abortion paid for by the government, that Joe Biden wants nuns in their hospitals to have to perform abortions. Joe Biden wants to take away all your guns. These are threshold issues to Catholics. And the other issue about an Amy Coney Barrett that is very important, too, is that we are losing young evangelicals. They don't like Donald Trump. That's Donald Trump's fault. I'm not here to defend his personality. They will vote. If he gets this through before the election, they will vote because they see that he delivers and he's a man of his word. If they leave it open and talk about a lame duck, they will wave their eyes and not go to the ballots.
Well, it doesn't get much attention, Sam. You mentioned this, except when, the only time it gets attention is when a lot of the press is slandering a kid who happens to be there. But the March for Life is a good example of what you're talking about with that young evangelical vote. A million kids show up, young people show up in Washington, D.C. Every March for the March for Life. It's a turning out. Those folks, as you mentioned, a little disenchanted with President Trump. But this might get them re-engaged. We'll see what comes of it. Real quickly, I wanted to play a clip of Nancy Pelosi and her response to the possibility that President Trump is going to get another nominee to the Supreme Court. Here she is.
Well, we have our options. We have arrows in our quiver that I'm not about to discuss right now.
That quiver, that arrow she was referencing is impeachment. Do they actually think this is a remedy to this?
I don't. Well, first of all, let's assume she was referencing impeachment, John. If that's what, I don't think she knows what she was referencing, because if you saw the latter part, she started.
You don't know which day she was in, let alone what she's referencing.
Listen. If they want to impeach a judge, Jerry Nadler talked about impeaching Kavanaugh when he took over the House Judiciary. That's fine, and if you do it, that's fine, because you know what, the Republicans, we are now going to be the party that. We won't extend the same courtesies that we believe in congeniality and all this nonsense that never happened in the past or in the McCain days. There will be repercussions, and I think that McConnell has proven, and his people, whoever succeed him, have proven that we know how to wield power better than them. So let's see what happens. I think that that's a lot of bunk. I don't believe that they would ever pack the court, because if they pack the court, then we can pack the court. So we can keep playing this game. She can do nothing. She has nothing to do.
Right.
They all know this is all talk. I want to explain to everyone. McConnell gets it to the floor. Romney will vote for it. Gardner will vote for it. Don't worry about Murkowski, who didn't even vote for Kavanaugh, I remind everyone. Susan Collins has been a lost cause to the Republican Party for a long time.
Yeah, Sam, you see this in states like South Carolina, where Larry Sabato has now moved this, leans Republican from a toss-up state just based on this issue. There's no benefit in breaking with President Trump, especially in a state like South Carolina. That's what we've seen over and over. We got to run. Sam, great to see you as always. Thanks so much.
Newsmax TV is now America's fastest growing cable news channel. We give you the real news you need. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, share it with your friends. Newsmax TV streams live on YouTube for free. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.